This is Sales Management Mastery, Episode 20.
Welcome to Sales Management Mastery, where you get an insider's look on how to build, motivate, coach, and lead a high-performance, low-maintenance sales team. Here's your host, Ralph Burns.
Hello and welcome to Sales Management Mastery online at salesmanagementmastery.com. And we're here to help you and your sales managers build a team of highly motivated, elite salespeople using easy-to-use, real-world sales management techniques and tactics that'll unleash a flood of new sales for your sales organization. On this episode of Sales Management Mastery, we're going to talk about what not to do when setting goals, entitled, Don't Do This as a Sales Manager. I'd also like to remind you that if you'd like to get a jump start on creating your own team of supercharged salespeople using our proven system, you can claim your free training course of your choice, including our most popular training of all time, How to Motivate Your Sales Team to Peak Performance at the Sales Management Mastery Academy, by going to salestraininggift.com. Now, a couple of shows ago, we talked to you about the secret sauce of sales management, which was, as we uncovered in that show, setting goals or getting your salespeople to set goals for themselves on a quarterly, maybe a monthly, or in combination on an annual basis that are very specific towards targets that are above expectations and above where you really want them to be, which is, for most of us, the goal for most salespeople is 100% quota attainment. We talked about setting perfection goals and the importance of setting goals just in general for your salespeople. But when you set goals for your salespeople, to help them set goals for themselves rather, there are a lot of things that you've got to keep in mind that are sort of danger spots or sort of pitfalls of goal setting, which we're going to talk about here today. So as part of the Don't Do This as a Sales Manager, this is one of the more important parts to helping your sales reps set goals, is to make sure that you keep a very tight leash on those goals and you have control to a certain degree over the formation of those goals, and you obviously oversee the actions that are being taken in order to achieve those goals. So I don't think there's any question that among psychologists, the link between setting goals and achievement is one of the clearest that there is. I mean, with wide-ranging studies like the Harvard example that we used a couple of weeks ago to prove that we as humans, just in general, concentrate better, we work longer, and we do more when we set these SMART type goals for ourselves. The issue is that there's a dark side to goal setting. And as a top-performing sales manager, as an aspiring sales manager, or maybe the manager of a company or a vice president of sales or owner of an organization, you need to be aware of the downside here. And we're going to talk a little bit about that here today in today's show. So there is recent evidence that individuals, companies, and governments can actually hurt themselves by setting and blindly following goals, although they may seem to make a whole lot of sense at the time of their creation. These are sort of goals that are out of context. So goals that specifically are maybe not as reachable or not as realistic, which is the R in the SMART goal setting system, and they can in turn end up sabotaging the attainment of those goals. So it's not that the goal setting doesn't work, because it definitely does. It's just that goal setting, if it isn't set correctly, can focus your attention on the wrong things. And it can lead to behaviors that aren't healthy and that can maybe even be destructive. So anyway, one of the things that we talk about in the Sales Management Mastery Academy quite a bit is what we call prescription strength goals. And even though Aristotle believed in goals, he said, this is, I think, a quote directly from him, first have a definite, clear, practical idea, a goal, an objective. That's the first thing that you must do. Where are you actually heading? And that's why the goal setting is so important for your salespeople. Where do they want to be 3 months from now, a month from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now? And Abraham Lincoln even got into the goal setting idea and saying a goal properly set is halfway reached. So there's no doubt that goals work, and the idea is commonly accepted by management gurus as well as those less than gurus here at the Sales Management Mastery podcast as well. So it's really well documented, though, that when people are just told to kind of do their best or go out and do a good job, they more often than not don't. And that's why goal setting is so important. However, when people have specific goals that energize them, it keeps them engaged far longer. And there's been great companies in the past like General Electric, Southwest Airlines, and just to name a few that have used goals to energize employees around a central purpose or a central theme, and they've pulled off these amazing feats of genius in the process and obviously done very well for themselves as organizations. But some goal-setting experts realize that there is this downside or this dark side to goals. And one of the experts in this regard is a man by the name of Adam Galinsky, and he's a professor at Kellogg at Northwestern University. He cautions that goal setting has been treated like an over-the-counter medication when it really should be treated with more care as a prescription strength medication. So, although goals brought us great success from companies like GE and Southwest, goals also brought us spectacular failures like Enron and General Motors, and two companies whose relatively recent failures occurred in spite of well-meaning and very ambitious goals. So the problem is this, though, that recent data shows that if people are close to their goals or in fear of missing their goals, they're more likely to lie to make up for the difference. So, for example, the recent dysfunctional environment at Enron created through its practice of rewarding top-level executives on meeting revenue target goals. And these goals had a direct correlation to the criminal activity that ultimately led to the downfall of the organization. So, and another great example that Galinsky writes about is in the mid-1990s, Sears and Roebuck began setting revenue goals for its service staff, only to realize that the mechanics were actually overcharging and making unnecessary repairs to customers that didn't know any better just so that they can hit their number. So sometimes if you set a goal that's too high, a salesperson, or you set that goal with that salesperson might actually end up creating some kind of devious activity in order to achieve that goal. So that's why when you're setting goals, they've got to be realistic and attainable. And the attainable is the A in SMART goals. So, also another thing to be wary about, and I actually worked for an organization that had one of these, is what they call the BHAG. And this study at Kellogg found that these stretch goals were also in jeopardy of losing their luster as well. They found that more often than not, these BHAG, or big, hairy, audacious goals is what they're called. That's where the BHAG comes from. Oftentimes, these kind of goals were pursued by desperate companies who were just kind of, zigzagging their way through to try and energize their employees any way that they could. And BHAG goals are something that you've really got to be careful with. Some companies have used it to a great degree and for great success. In a couple of the books that Jim Collins wrote, he specifically mentions BHAG goals as these big, hairy, audacious goals, but oftentimes they fall flat on their face because they're too audacious, because they're too large. And as a result of them being too large, people may actually result in creating or performing activities that they otherwise would